Consultants Network, but then also the Life Member Affinity Group meeting of many different sections that you can see listed there on the slide. Chi is Central Texas. And the rest of that's pretty much in Region 5. And now, okay, computers cooperating. So first of all, here are the leaders of the Life Member Affinity Group. Kai is chairman, Tom Grimm is vice chair, I'm treasurer, Clyde Springen secretary, and Kai is program manager, John Purvis webmaster. Here's what's going to happen next year. The elections were just completed. First of all, you'll see most of the names are the same. We're just changing roles in a few places, but we welcome Dennis Ferguson as our communications manager. Looking forward to having him. And here is the Consultants Network leadership team. At least a couple of the names are different here, with Jody and Sergio. This is this year, we have a ballot going on at the moment. For next year, it isn't going to look much different, if any, next year for the Consultants Network. And then we've heard we don't have to introduce tonight's speaker. He's going to introduce himself. So we'll skip this slide and just go to letting everybody know. Topic is Independent for Life, Homes and Neighborhoods for an Aging America. Then I'm going to get out of here, stop share, and let Wayne take over.
Okay, I will start share. And I'm going to do the same thing, share my entire desktop.
Yes.
And
all right.
Okay.
Okay.
So assuming you can see my sort of like the intro slide. What I want to do in the first couple of slides is give everybody a feel of what my background is that influences my perspective and my biases. Okay, if you're looking for someone, if you're looking for opinions, it's really good to know what the bias is behind those opinions. So I started with IBM in '69, punch cards, worked through computer operations, programming, systems engineering, marketing, and ended up retiring 30 years later in market strategy. In that process, I moved from enterprise systems with mainframe computers like you see in the background to consumer technologies with the PC and everything. And once IBM started getting out of the consumer markets, that was my signal to retire. So I bill myself as a futurist and market strategist. And with my consumer focus, I'm also like a consumer advocate. And I founded a website and blog called Modern Health Talk, which I've been running for about 10 years now. As much as anything, it's a not-for-profit retirement project, but it's really quite extensive. Now, a little bit more, before retiring from IBM, that was '99, I introduced IBM to the smart home concept. And also I had held leadership roles in wireless and home gateway standards development. Well, the 2 pages you see here are from a feature article at the Austin American-Statesman talking about my fully automated home. Because I was using my home as a living laboratory and my wife is a guinea pig to see what technologies consumers would embrace, what brought value, and that sort of thing. And then after retiring, because I had this expertise in wireless and sensors and stuff, I started a digital home consulting firm called Kazi Tech. Did that for a few years, moved on to Siemens and Dell. I did lobbying, protecting public Wi-Fi in Texas and Texas homeowners, and then finally founded Modern Health Talk. Now that arrow kind of points to the URL, mhealthtalk.com. And here you see a screen capture of the home page. And a lot of little drop down tabs, the arrows pointing to housing, and there's about 130 articles on there about different things related to housing, mostly senior housing and independent living. What led me to Modern Health Talk and to this as a project is wanting purpose in my life, something after paid employment. And I'll credit, many of you know John Vanston there in Austin. He was the founder of Technology Futures. I had done some smart home consulting for his firm. And he wrote a book called Mini Trends, and it talked about the overlapping trends. Well, what do you see there surrounding the Modern Health Talk on the left is all of these various different trends that overlap, that happen to be all of them areas that I had a lot of interest in. And it also overlapped an area that had tremendous need and importance. And so I write about, you can see there kind of in the middle, there's over 800 articles posted on healthcare policy, technology, futures, and independent living. Independent living in my experience with my own mom and her path into eventually passing away, that also factored into my views in the kinds of things I write about. So a little bit about the title. Y'all saw this in what was sent out to you at the very beginning, but it's a look at various different housing options as we get ready to retire. Or maybe for younger folks, you've got your parents that are retirement age, and how do we support them? And at Modern Health Talk, my primary audience is the sandwich generation, the professional adults that have their own kids, but they're also taking care of their mom and father, the grandparents. And so in this talk, I'll talk about things we can do for remodeling of current housing and retrofitting of neighborhoods. I will talk about the kinds of things going into new homes and the planning for new sorts of communities. But the reason for that picture with Peter Pan is he said, "I won't grow up, I won't grow up." Well, but he never really planned for injuries or getting old. And that's where many of us are today. Well, the title, I got to give credit because it came from this book, Independent for Life, which was co-authored by, you recognize this picture here, that's former San Antonio Mayor and HUD Secretary Henry Cisneros. And Cisneros' mom lived there in Austin, and he had a lot of influence on the Austin City Council, where they changed the building codes to require new homes in Austin now must be ADA compliant. That means there must be an entry to the main floor of the house at street level or with no stairs. And it must have, the main floor must have a bathroom or half bath. And there's other things in there like how wide the doorways need to be and how high plugs and light switches and stuff should be. But that's kind of cool. Austin, one of the first in the nation to have that kind of zoning. Now, of course, there is compliance, depending on your lot, it might be a little bit more difficult to do. But that's a nice success story. Now, this slide, I just selected some articles that I wanted to make you aware of the ones that are related to senior housing and stuff. It just sort of glanced through these. There's new housing directions, there's technologies for seniors, there's how do you design homes for this demographic, or how do you renovate homes, and in doing so, save the family's estate. Now you see the links to all of those. Well, the slides that I'm showing are all available on the Google Drive, and I think Kai's going to share that information. They're also available on SlideShare. Each of these 4 articles are pretty extensive and have their own set of reference links to other places. Sometimes the other places are other articles on my site, sometimes other places are around the web. But that's just as a FYI. Another resource there's a video. It's like almost 5 minutes long. I'm not going to show the video. This is a cover picture of the video about how will we come of age in the aging of America. And there's the URL link there. I do capture some stuff from that video, but I encourage you to watch the video later on if there's things you'd like to find more on. Now, this image came from that video showing the fact that we are now living long past our retirement age. Medicare starts at 65. Social Security was meant to start at 62, but that was when the average longevity was 65, and that's the people tended to retire at age 65. Most market researchers like Pew Research, they define seniors as people 65 or older. That drives me crazy because you'll see that later is that people 85 and above that's the real seniors, because they never use computers in their job and they tend to be a lot less tech savvy. But as we look at this, the life expectancy for men who are already age 65 is now 85. Well, 20 years is a pretty long time to live in retirement without work income. And so as you're looking forward to what your housing needs are, consider your financial needs and stuff as well. Now, life expectancy from birth, that's what we usually look at. And for American men, that's now 74 and a half years. For women, it's like 80 years old. But that number is actually pretty damn low compared to other rich nations around the world. That number for American was almost 79 years for men back in 2014. Our life expectancy has been getting shorter over time. Part of that is because of COVID and opioids and things like that, but it's also because our healthcare is relatively poor compared to other nations. One of the reasons I write about it so much at Modern Health Talk. Well, there's a lot of pretty scary demographic changes and stuff. The first baby boomers, and that's what's really driving this change. The boomers turned age 65 starting at about 2011. And this demographic is going to double from 35 million boomers, or actually 35 million people over age 65. That includes the ones over age 85. It'll double from about 2000 to about 73 million by 2030 and 90 million by 2060. That is huge growth, causes all sorts of questions like, how will we work, save, spend, study, and help others in the future? How will we vote? The boomers are a huge voting bloc. How and when will we retire? Once we leave paid employment, actually retire, and then how do we cope with the potential lack of engagement? Finding purpose in our life. Because if we don't find purpose, that impacts our longevity. will we in retirement lose that innovative and entrepreneurial spirit that our generation was famous for? What new ideas might we pursue? And where and how will we live? Okay, so that's kind of the setup for the rest of the talk. Some of the trends. This is looking at the number of people in the population over 65 and over 75 going forward. That vertical line is where we are now at age 22. And as people retire and they start going on Social Security and Medicare, we also know that they start needing more healthcare. So our healthcare costs are already pretty darn high, twice as much as the average of the rest of the world, but they're going to go up. And that's really scary to politicians and stuff doing policy. This chart here, rather than the size of population, is projections of the growth rates. And what it does is it looks at at three different age groups. And you can see that this 85 and up is growing or will grow at a very substantial rate. Now this goes from 2020 on the left to 2060 on the right. But it's also important to know, the policymakers really worried about this, is as people leave the workforce, there's fewer people left behind to be paying taxes and supporting those retirees. And so the boomers are going to strain budgets and overburden national and state and local governments, just like they have done all the way through. From when we first entered schools, there weren't enough schools, not enough teachers, there weren't not enough pediatricians. They're not, now there aren't enough gerontologists. And so the baby boomer generation has had a huge impact. Housing, of course, is going to be part of that impact. This chart here is showing the different spaces that Medicare spends on. So hospital care is the part B, that's the dark blue. Home health care, that's the lighter blue. We can see how as people age, how the amount of healthcare spending changes. So Medicare spending for someone my age, I'm 74. So that vertical line shows that the accumulation of all of that spending is about $8,300 per year. And then, of course, I've got out-of-pocket copays and things like that. So besides the aging demographic impacting healthcare a lot, it also impacts various other things, including how mobile we are, how easy it is to or not to live independently, the cost of housing, and that sort of thing. Now, this is my last healthcare chart before I get into the housing side. I mentioned that we spend a lot more. The average longevity in the US is worse than the rest of the world, and our typical health outcomes are worse, whether that is infant mortality or whatever. But still and we don't even cover everybody, but still we spend about twice as much as that blue line, the average of the other rich nations. Now that, to me, as a marketing and a strategy guy, represents a huge opportunity, because you can see there we currently spend about $4 trillion a year on healthcare in total. If we were just to become average, we would save $2 trillion a year. But it goes beyond that, because if our nation was to invest strategically in our workforce to make us healthier, more skilled, and more productive, what impact would that have on corporate profits, GDP, global competitiveness? That's why I spend so much time writing about healthcare at Modern Health Talk, trying to have such a little bit of influence telling that story. But today's topic is housing options. And this build-up chart is going to show some of those options. The nursing homes being the most expensive. You can see there the cost for a semi-private room upwards of $90,000 a year. Rehab facilities and memory care get close to that. These are the more expensive options. But sometimes people may be forced into that based on any health outcomes and stuff. And we'll look at ways of lessening or staying in your own home as far as you can without having to go to a nursing home. And my mom was able to age in place her entire life. She ended up dying at home. And of course, that was the least expensive. Assisted living facility kind of comes in the middle. This is where seniors have their own apartment, but they have access to assistance, whether that is for Medicare, medication management, transportation, things like that. And you can see the pricing there, just over $50,000 a year. Still expensive. That's for a one-bedroom. Now, I imagine that many of us, actually most of us by our age, are in our own home. Some are maybe have already moved into a age-restricted community, or I'm going to go beyond that into independent living facilities, kind of like an apartment where there's all sorts of amenities. But those top two, aging in place in your own home or with family, is the least expensive of the options. So with home renovations, with hiring professional support for like home health care and telehealth, or maybe some devices or technologies that can help you stay in your home longer, you can see that costs a whole lot less aging in place than a nursing home. Now, my wife and I live in one of these age-restricted communities. It's individual households. It's not a apartment complex. Our house is about 1,800 square feet. We have all sorts of amenities. Now, ours is a relatively small community. We have about 350 homes. It's going to go up to maybe just over 700 homes. It's quite a bit smaller than Sun City and Georgetown, and a heck of a lot smaller than the Villages in Florida, which is over 55,000 homes. But Kai and I were on the phone before we started, and the bottom left there talks about continuing care communities. I think it's Westminster's or something like that. That's just off of Mopac. It's a tall series of buildings that, I guess about 10 stories tall. It's apartments. Basically, that's an example. It's an independent living facility that you can upgrade into full nursing home kind of care. Anyway, there are all sorts of other options, whether you own your home, whether you rent, whether you take in a roommate, and things like that. So as you look at housing options, actually, this went too quickly. Okay, as you look at housing options, here's some of the different criteria. And one of the big ones is the level of care that you need. That's what would drive one into a nursing home if they needed skilled nursing 24/7. If you need skilled nursing 2 hours a day, you can hire that with home healthcare. People can come in. You can also have home healthcare non-medical care for things like bathing or eating, toileting, dressing, transferring from bed to toilet to wheelchair, that sort of thing. So level of care is the big one. The other things that come play, the next one over is caregiving support. Is your family around? How much care can they provide? Now that sandwich generation, the professionals that in the workforce that have their own kids, and they're also taking care of grandma and grandpa, they can really offload and help save a lot of money. But AARP puts the cost of that unpaid family care at something, yet like they have to take off time from work and things like that, is over $480 billion a year. But that can help in your decision, is do you have access to that care? Where do you want to live? Some people may want to retire out in the country, but is that near a healthcare facility or shopping or transportation? How about internet access? Because telehealth is and you know, e-commerce and stuff is so important now, and shopping and stuff. The e-commerce, having things delivered to you instead of having to go to the mall, even groceries. What about social support? You don't want to be isolated. You want to be able to be around family and friends and things like that. That's one of the things that drives people into like the kind of community that I'm in. It has so many clubs and classes and activities and sports and stuff. But then there's a financial consideration. Now, I don't know, everybody's situation is going to be different. I was fortunate enough to retire from IBM with a full pension. And my wife and I are both on Social Security. With our downsized house and downsized lifestyle, that's enough. And that's what gives me the opportunity to do altruistic things and write about healthcare and stuff on my website without any compensation and stuff for that. But what's your objective? Is it to travel? Do you want to spend it all and by the time you die, or do you want to build up and save a nest egg that for your heirs? Everybody's different, and you got to look at that. Now, I don't do any financial planning. I don't recommend financial planners, specific ones, but I do put this one slide in here because this documentary caught my eye. It's a real deep dive into what's going on with pensions and Social Security and annuities, looking at this aging baby boomer problem that we're facing. So that's a good one. Good resource. Now, this is a video. I am going to play about a minute of this video that was initially featured at Broadband Communities conference that I attended 8 years ago. I was on a discussion panel about fiber optics into assisted living facilities. And I set up the panel by first describing a class that I taught there in Austin to one of the biggest assisted living facilities in the city, where the average age was like 85 to 90. And these were what I call the real seniors. So these are the ones that, at least half of them were on a walker or a wheelchair of some sort. But they were very interested in all the technology and its impact on healthcare I was talking about. But as I would normally do, I polled the audience. I asked them, how many of y'all have a computer? Okay. Yes. So how many of you have a smartphone? You mean you're unable to access the internet? even though your bank state, your social security check is electronically deposited, you can't do e-banking or e-shopping. What about the isolation? So I set that up because I was really, it saddened me to see that many. Now I'm going to shift over here and start this little video.
That was great. I have a 39-year-old granddaughter on Cape Cod who gave birth to twins a little over a year ago. And I don't feel I'm ready to go to Cape Cod. But boy, have I had fun watching these twins develop.
I was really surprised when all that family tree came up in front of me.
I appreciate the camera aspect. Then I can send the pictures to my computer.
You know, connecting with family that don't like to phone. Kept in contact with my son-in-law who had a liver transplant.
I think the pictures that the kids send, I enjoy them because I don't get to see them very often.
Well, the email and Facebook.
More knowledge or more depth in technology.
It's brought back my family that I haven't seen for so long in California.
What have you learned teaching these classes?
I have also gained new knowledge, and it's been a great feeling to be able to help the others.
Okay, so you've got a feel for that. The video is longer than I'm showing, but the contrast with the polling that I did in my class and what these guys showed after teaching this iPad class was just heartwarming, and it so much defined the difference between seniors 65 and over and the real seniors 85 and older. So as we look at how we might cope, I also mentioned, I think, to Kai before we started, that before my son was born, my wife and I lived in a fairly large two-story. It was just over 3,000 square feet. And the problem was all of the bedrooms and bathrooms were upstairs. The only thing downstairs was a small powder room. We worried about what happened if something was to have happened to us. Fortunately, we didn't fall or have a disability preventing us from using stairs. But as we looked to downsize to a smaller home, we visited Sun City and Georgetown. And we came back from that visit wanting to incorporate a lot of the independent living kind of features that I'll be covering. I have one more little story here I want to, I lost my microphone. One more little story I want to cover. And this refers back to that Peter Pan again, because Peter never wanted to grow up, but he didn't plan on growing old. And but now 37 years into the marriage with Wendy, Peter suffers a severe stroke. He's put into the hospital. And the question is, how do Peter and Wendy respond? And there's two scenarios. The first scenario is Peter goes into a nursing home. Remember, nursing home, very expensive. Now, because Wendy was not going to be able to maintain that big home of theirs on her own, and she wasn't going to be able to afford it, they sold the home and she moved into a little apartment. So selling the home helped pay for the nursing home care, helped pay for her small apartment. The problem was they were separated, and that really impacted their mood and everything, not being with your lifelong mate, but also their kids had two places to visit now, to visit dad and grandpa or mom and grandma. And it sort of chewed into the family estate. Then look at scenario number 2. Number 2 is they remodel. Now, they know that remodeling for a wheelchair might cost $50,000 or so if you've got to expand doorways and things. And they didn't really even know what they needed to do to be able to support Peter when he came home. So they work with an occupational therapist to do the remodeling, and they financed the whole thing with home equity so that they could keep most of the home and not tap into their retirement income or hurt what the kids would eventually inherit. They also hired some skilled nursing initially, and in addition to that, they got, once the skilled nursing was not needed, you had people to help with the other things around there. So here's some of the things that the occupational therapist did to the bathroom. Actually, this cost a lot less. It only cost about $14,000 to put in the grab bars, replace the toilet with a higher one, replace the sink, so a wheelchair knee space under the sink. The mirror tilts back so you can see yourself if you're sitting in a wheelchair. The lever faucets, those kinds of things. In the shower, they have an adjustable shower seat and adjustable shower head. And so they were able to do some relatively modest things. Now, in our home, that 2-story, we would not have been able to do that because we only had this small powder room downstairs. That would have been much more expensive, maybe have to build a separate bathroom in the garage area because of the plumbing. But anyway, here's some other kinds of things you can get: walk-in tubs, hydraulic lifts that can carry you from bed to toilet to shower, that sort of thing. Devices to help you transfer from a wheelchair into the bath. The problem with these things, and here, of course, we see stair ramps, even lifts to take you upstairs, or elevators. Some of those things can be temporary, even rented and removed afterwards, which is good because going into a home with some of the features that we've seen so far scream, hey, I'm old and frail, and it can hurt the home value. So what I want to show you in the next couple of slides is ways to get around that. Now, for time, I'm gonna skip this piece here. I have a little video I was going to share, show on a new kind of home robot. But so I've got several articles on robots. On the left, there's some that are like companion robots. There's a little Paro seal that it responds to your touch. It vibrates. It purrs. Its eyes close and things like that. And you charge it up by putting the charger in its mouth. On the right-hand side, you see some of the robots designed for mobility, or in the case of prosthetics and stuff. And that one in the middle is a new robot that was introduced in the last couple of weeks that helps with mobility. But what I want to speak of now is the concept of universal design. Because before I left IBM, I went with some colleagues to a conference on technology for people with disabilities. And looking at all the different kind of products, and we sort of had a feel for some of those in the previous slides, I came away from that thinking, especially the technology products, is they're relatively expensive to develop, often with proprietary operating systems and applications. And wouldn't it be better to design products that work well for everybody, regardless of age, size, or ability. And that's the concept behind universal design. And we're all have disabilities of some sort throughout our lives. I wear glasses, for example. In fact, I have different glasses for a computer or for TV or whatever. Sometimes we can't hear. So if you go into a sports bar and up there are games on, but you can't hear it because of so much conversation, so they put in closed captioning at the bottom, and you can keep track of what's being said with the interview or whatever, just by reading that. Well, this applies to mobility, cognitive ability, all sorts of things. So how can we think and develop products, websites, and housing with universal design in mind? So here's some more modern looks of a bathroom designed for people of any ability. So we see that in the middle, you can just wheelchair right into the shower. There's grab bars in the shower and the toilet area. It's a comfort height toilet. You see knee space underneath the countertop. It's a levered faucets on the countertop, and that sort of thing. Here's one I especially like. This is an adaptable design for a bathroom, and you see that within that circled area is the cabinet can be removed, so wheelchair can have knee space underneath, and then maybe after you recover, you can put the cabinet back in. That's kind of innovative, and the designs can be as attractive or elegant as you want. No one would ever think that this bathroom is designed for someone with a wheelchair. That would hurt the home's value. But if you tout a home as being ADA compliant, but with a design like this, is really cool. Attractive looking grab bar with seat, handheld shower wand, even a place to sit down with a foot bath and whirlpool jets. But what if you don't have, like in my case, you don't have a space to remodel? One option is bringing in a tiny home style, a Med Cottage. Med Cottage happens to be a branded company that this is one of their designs. It can be installed on your lot if you have space and if zoning allows. Again, every situation is different. Now, in the middle, you can't read that there, but you'll see a link to smart toilets, because the image is referring to a toilet and some of the smarts. And I wrote an article about the Panasonic Intimist smart toilet that knows who you are based on measuring your weight and body temperature and percent body fat. Then it has a built-in bidet and fan. It then chemically analyzes the output and reports that to a health monitoring station. So that's kind of cool. Now, Lennar, one of the bigger home builders in the country, is starting to introduce designs specifically for what they call multi-generational homes. And this design works just as well for that blue area. Might be a college kid or one of your kids that had gone off to college and the workforce and now is having troubles and needs to come back to mom. And he or she can have their own private garage and entry. There also a separate entry into the house. But that also is a great place for grandma to come back and age in place, be there with the protection of family, but not feeling that they're imposing on family. And that was kind of the advantage that mom had as she built onto my brother's home and stuff. Now, that leads into smart home technology. Actually, let me go back to here, because a lot of the homes, in the home that we recently bought into. We purchased it, almost completed, moved in August in the Fulshire area near Houston. It's a lot of the features were surprises to us. There's so many things that are Wi-Fi connected. The range, it's a gas range that will sense if there's hasn't been anybody used the range in a while, it'll automatically shut off. The door lock, the garage door opener, Wi-Fi enabled. Of course, the thermostat's Wi-Fi enabled. Now, some of these things I'm very much an advocate of. I don't like programmable thermostats because we go to bed at different times in many nights. And the thermostat doesn't know if I'm cold because I just ate ice cream or if I'm hot because I came in from exercising. I don't like the thermostat like that, not unless it was to be connected to a wrist monitor that measures skin temperature and ambient temperature. But would I ever even consider a smart thermostat? Other than it might be useful if I'm remote or away, or let's say if I'm a snowbird and I have a home up north that I live in the summertime and a home down here that I live in the wintertime. So that might be useful. But so a lot of those smart home technologies, I tend to be skeptical of. Now, I was a smart home consultant, introduced IBM to the concept in 1994. But this is a concept that has been touted as the next big thing for at least 60 years now, since the 1957 World's Fair when RCA Whirlpool introduced their Miracle Kitchen. And at the bottom of this image is a link to an article that I have that compares that video of the Miracle Kitchen with videos from the Consumer Electronics Show, Samsung and LG showing off their smart fridge and that sort of thing. Speaking of smart fridge, I've got another article critical of putting all this technology, including a touchscreen panel in a white good appliance that normally would last 40 or 50 years. But we know that technology goes obsolete much more quickly. So instead of spending $4,000 up for a smart fridge, my article argued that I could make an even smarter fridge with a $40 attachment that lets you put your iPad on the fridge. So you don't have to have a proprietary operating system and apps written specifically for it, but you have many, many more apps, including cooking apps and kitchen apps and everything. And you can take your iPad down and use it on the counter or on the kitchen table or the sofa. And the left, you show my iPad hooked up to my fridge with a coat hanger. So it can be absolutely free to get a smart fridge. We can debate that. But the one thing I am aware of is there are some smart home apps and technologies that actually do matter to people in our demographic. So things like that Ring doorbell with the camera, the door lock that wife and I don't even take the key with us because we can just keypad in. But if we were remote and delivery guy comes with an expensive item we don't want left on the porch, we can see who it is. We can answer the door remotely and even let the person in and then watch them leave again and lock the door. That kind of thing is really useful. I talked about why I didn't like the smart thermostats, but each home is different. And one thing I learned moving from that fully automated 2-story home into downsizing into a 1-story, even though I put in all the structured wiring myself to make that one also fully automated, was that a lot of that automation wasn't justified, and it added complexity. And unless that complexity brings value, why do it? I noticed that in my one story, I could, when at bedtime, I could look at to the back door. I could look to the front door to make sure that they're locked. I could see if there's any lights on, and I adjust the thermostat as I walk into the bedroom. I don't need the same level of automation that I needed in the big two-story. But if we are looking at that future of smart home stuff, one thing that is going to, I'm sure many of you have already heard of, called Matter. Matter, I think, it's a new network connection technology that kind of bridges between Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and Zigbee. It simplifies the introduction of new products into the home, making them more interoperable, reliable, and secure. There's a video we're not going to play, but I encourage you to look at it later. This is introduced by the Connectivity Standards Alliance, kind of like the Wi-Fi Alliance. And that is the reason why I think Matter will matter, because product manufacturers will be able to get certification testing and then use the Matter logo on their product that says their Wi-Fi product works with that Matter enabled, the front door lock or the window blinds or whatever it is. So we're seeing all sorts of products, already over 190 of them in the pipeline getting certified, many of them already tested, and many more of them coming. You can see a list of them: robot vacuums, CO2 sensors, all that kind of stuff. As you look at that, again, refer back to my article that is basically critical of the smart home industry and what is it going to take for that to truly become a mass market. With that, I will stop my sharing and get back to any questions that y'all may have. So at the very beginning, you've got a feel for the background and perspective and some of the bias behind my opinions. That I'm sure, as we're all given our age and looking for retirement options, I'm open. Bob, yes.
Thanks, Wayne. And by the way, ironically, we both started IBM on the same year.
Cool. Yeah.
Cool. But I'm interested in Matter. Tell me a little bit more about it. I mean, tell me what it is. What? I mean, it sounds like something like something. It sounds more than a solution in search of a problem. It sounds like it's trying to do something.
Yeah. So a little more. Yeah, one of the problems that I had written about for a long time within the automated home space is that product manufacturers come at the space with different needs that cause them to select different technologies. So if it's like a video doorbell or surveillance cameras, they need high bandwidth. Okay, high bandwidth is going to require more battery consumption. Okay, so it either needs to be hardwired or it's going to consume a lot of battery. But something like the automated blinds for window blinds, they want a product that can work for years, or even better than that would be the little magnet contact things for a home security system. Mm-hmm. Whether it's motion sensors, the magnet switch on the door or the window. You want something very small that works with a hearing aid battery that can last for years. Mm-hmm. That's what Zigbee as a wireless standard supports. But Zigbee doesn't talk with Wi-Fi. Mm-hmm. Wi-Fi, high bandwidth, a lot of transmit power so it can cover the entire house. Bluetooth, pretty good transmit power or speed. and not nearly as good as Wi-Fi. Okay for some video conference, great for like that portable speaker, but it doesn't have the range that Wi-Fi has. It can cover about 30 feet. So you lose your connection when you take that speaker out into the backyard. These kinds of problems will hopefully get solved with Matter. Matter is sort of like an overlay technology that you've got let's say the radio technology, the Zigbee, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and then you have another that sits on top of that, but where the application can talk to products using different network protocols. And the importance is going to be that just like with Wi-Fi, one of the things that helped spur Wi-Fi along, well, actually there was two. One was the certification testing that came from the Wi-Fi Alliance. So you had the logo on the box that said it worked with any other Wi-Fi product. The other was that when you had multiple manufacturers of the silicon, and that helped drive down the costs. So with increased competition and lower costs, that also helped drive mass market adoption of Wi-Fi. Such that, that kind of answer the question.
Thanks. I'll look more. I mean, it's just I hadn't heard of it. And I'll look more into it. Thank you.
So it's relatively new. Introduced this year. The certification testing and the first products were just announced this like within the last month. So so if you're looking to put in a smart light switch or a plug for controlling lamps or things like that today, I would be either holding off or looking for ones that they are saying will work with Matter. The other thing that is important is one of the biggest interfaces within the home is including for seniors, is voice. The Alexa, the Amazon Alexa, the Google Voice, the Apple Siri. Now you tend to have different ecosystems. You're on the Amazon ecosystem or the Google ecosystem, or in our case, it's the Apple ecosystem. And that has been a problem in the past, is if a smart home was based on one ecosystem and I was not in that system, and then I'm an Apple guy, I don't want to buy a home that's based on Alexa. Okay, Matter is going to solve that.
So a local company, Silicon Lab, is one of the promoter of the IoT chips. So I think that's one of the supporter of the Matter.
Yes. So my perspective on that and the relationship to the Wi-Fi standard and the Wi-Fi Alliance and stuff stems back from when I represented IBM on a wireless industry standard called Home RF. At the time, Home RF was, all of the pundits were saying that was the best technology. It was more secure than Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi was called 802.11b. Okay, eventually became branded as Wi-Fi. But 802.11 went through several iterations and initially was used in like warehouses and things like that, and had problems in a consumer space like an apartment building when it used 2.4 gigahertz, which happened to be the same frequency as a microwave oven. So you're popping popcorn and all of a sudden your internet connection dies. Okay, that's Wi-Fi. Well, now Wi-Fi has got 5 gigahertz as well as 2.4 gigahertz. Anyway, in this battle, a lot of things happened that enabled Wi-Fi to win in the marketplace. And I see some of those same things surrounding Matter. So that's why I think Matter has real promise. Are there any questions specific to home, the styles of homes, or more technology, or I mean, this is a technology group. I can go either direction.
Can you put your first chart back up that had the book you referenced?
Sure, let's see. Let me screen share again.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so there's a couple of books. The one that Independent for Life. Now, this is homes and neighborhoods for an aging America. That largely because of the focus and bias and everything that Henry Cisneros brought. This book aims more at building communities and neighborhoods and the things you need to deal with, like transportation hubs and how do you support people as they get into the upper 80s or whatever, where they can no longer drive. So those are the problems that he was trying to address. Remember, his mom was living there in Austin and stuff. So that's one of the books. Let's see, there was another book down here that, where'd it go?
I think just pass it. Yeah.
I don't think, no, this was the movie, this one here.
Oh, okay.
Here you go. Yeah, now this is a book specifically to the in-laws, outlaws, and granny flats. Okay, so this would be a good one for if you're wanting to build a mother-in-law wing on your house, or a separate, detached space for mom. And it talks about things like the zoning that you'd have to worry about and that sort of thing. Actually, even just adding a room or changing the plumbing in the house, you'd have to get that the zoning approved. So there's all sorts of other considerations. I'll stop the share here.
Thank you. That answered my question.
Okay.
I think one of the options may be buy a duplex, one for the the other families, so that you can live in close by, but you can put a door in between the duplex.
Yes, yes. I like that Lennar style home with that blue section there. Very flexible, and a lot of people, they had a big home was built in the 1950s and then was divided up into duplex. Okay, so those kinds of things can be done as well. And so I mentioned that every situation's different. Let me just sort of run you through mom's situation. We lived in growing up. I grew up in a tiny little house, less than 800 square feet in Arlington, Virginia. But mom and dad eventually moved into a bigger home in Fairfax, Virginia. It was a multi-story, like a Rambler style, so it had 4 levels.
Yes.
And when my dad had his first heart attack, it was a real problem because the bedrooms were upstairs. Right. And I did have a bathroom upstairs, but the kitchen and dining area was 1 floor down. And dad was very, very active. He was a woodworker, a golfer, and that sort of thing. So I was very concerned about his mental state after the heart attack. And so I went up and visited, and I came back, and how am I going to keep dad busy? And so I decided to buy him the best whittling knife that I could find, as something to do with his hands, because he taught me how to whittle neckerchief slides as a Boy Scout. Well, before I could get back up there to give him the knife, he had a second major heart attack and passed. Now, Mom, this was an example, kind of like Wendy and Peter, is that Mom had, she was not going to be able to maintain that big home and didn't want to spend that much for it. So the good thing, she sold the big home and used that money to buy a much smaller condo that was near my brother in Fairfax, Virginia. And that worked for many years. And it was a nice space for her. In doing that, she made some good decisions. She got rid of almost all of the furniture that was big scale Ethan Allen kind of furniture. And she bought all new stuff from Sears. But the scale was right and fit within there, and she was real happy with it. Those are some of the little things that can make you feel comfortable in the space that you're at. And so you don't want to bring everything with you. Sometimes it's better to just get rid of and start fresh. Now, as her health started declining more, she eventually sold that condo and used the money to build onto my brother's house that I had mentioned. Now, my sister-in-law at the time in her basement was running a daycare. And so she took care of like about 6 kids during the day. And Mom's little apartment built onto theirs, she could sit there in her kitchen table. In the morning, she could watch the parents deliver the kids. In the afternoon, pick up the kids. She could sit there and see the kids playing out in the yard. And she felt connected, but she didn't feel a burden. And my brother and sister-in-law felt comfortable that they were there in case anything happened to Mom. That she ended up eventually falling out of bed, breaking her hip. Oftentimes a broken hip is where it causes people to go downhill. And it was pretty quick from there, but she basically passed there in her own home.
Yeah. Wow. Very good. So that's very good talk. So just want to remind everybody, this session will be is being recorded. It will be, released in our website later on. And also Wayne already sent out his presentation to us. You can find his presentation in a file share, right?
Yes.
So you can go back to the material and get the link to view those videos that Wayne referred. So let's see, any other questions?
I have a comment. I looked at stair lifts for my wife because all our bedrooms are on the second floor.
Yes.
And that was one of the things I looked at, was being able to take it out if we ever decided to sell the house.
Yes.
And I was happy to see that you actually mentioned it. That was a very good talk.
Oh, thank
you.
Yeah, that big house that I described there in Austin before we downsized had a spiral staircase, and so some of the staircases that can handle the spiral, that's kind of cool. The elevators, some homes that are being built today, 2-story homes, are designed, or the architect is putting a upstairs closet where you can come in later and take over that space and put in an elevator right where the closet was. So there's innovative ways of lifting people, moving people around, and oftentimes it is helpful to seek out an occupational therapist, because they're aware of all sorts of tools. So let's say someone has I'm having a blind spot where you get shaky. Parkinson's, yeah. So someone's suffering from Parkinson's, and and as it gets worse and they're getting more shaky, imagine eating their bowl of cereal in the morning.
Okay.
Well, one of the types of products that I review on Modern Health Talk was basically it's let's call it a smart fork and spoon designed for that. It steadies, it has a gyroscope in there and it steadies the spoon.
Wow.
So each year, I no longer go to CES or Comdex. I used to do that for 30 some years. But I would go and I would really scope out all this stuff specifically to people with different disabilities. Because for a while when I was in Austin, I attended a monthly lunch called Tech Lunch. It was sponsored by the governor's office for people with disabilities, and the lady who ran it, ran Tech Lunch, was a group. Like they had a Facebook page and stuff, but she was totally blind. She would show up with her guide dog, and she wrote an article that's I have a version of her article on my site with something like 150 applications for people who are totally blind. But one thing that people tend to not know and think of is this little smartphone. I mean, doesn't have any, a lot of tactile buttons on it, but this is a blind person's favorite phone, favorite device. So anyway, I got permission and I republished her article. But so there's lots of things for, I mentioned Peter Pan. He didn't plan for it. There was an injury or a disease or something that caused a disability. There are ways of doing that within your own home. You don't need to be forced into a nursing home. Try to avoid that as long as possible, because remember, the differences in costs can be severe. So if you can stay in your own home, you hire skilled nursing support a couple times a week, maybe non-skilled nursing for help with the things like bathing and transfers and stuff like that. You can get away with about $25,000 a year.
Yes, but it takes planning.
It takes a bit of planning, yes.
Yeah.
And there are resources like the occupational therapist. There's one other resource. You might make a note of this, because I don't think I refer to it in any of the material I shared, is the National Association of Home Builders. They put a program in place called the CAPS program, Certified Aging in Place Specialist.
I see.
Okay. They know everything about how to design homes for the future aging, or how to do modifications. And so CAPS, Certified Aging in Place Specialist.
Yeah, I understand in Europe or in Asia, there are some group organizations who talk about aging also. So that's the one I attended partially. It's based in Singapore. So they also have some, small country, only 3 million people. So they have an aging population. So they have
and some other countries have a bigger aging problem than we have. Like Japan, for example, a one child per family policies is a problem, but they have a much bigger aging population, and so they have invested quite a bit into the technology, including some of the robots that I described. They're far ahead of us with healthcare robots, and that smart toilet, the Panasonic Intimus smart toilet that we saw when I went over there with Dell and talked with Panasonic, Sony, and others on wireless industry standards. That was kind of cool.
I think there's some kind of a service, portable bathing service. So they have a team of 3 or 4 persons, bring a tub, open it up, and set it up in your your living room and have a senior to take a bath. I think that started in Japan. I think they have that service in some big city in China also.
Yeah, so we're going to, because of this changing demographic and this huge wave of baby boomers, and the fact that we're living longer and we're going to be 20 some years in past retirement age and not contributing to the tax base and stuff like that, the policies have got to change. Everybody's talking about Social Security and Medicare running out of money. But whether you're on the left or you're right, there's different ways of addressing that same problem. One, of course, is delaying retirement age further out. There's cutting benefits. There's also changing the funding and stuff of how much goes in. And my biggest point is healthcare reform that at least gets us to average. And here in the US, we tend to be proud of always doing things bigger and better. Why would we settle for average? We ought to be able to give healthcare to everybody in the country, have the best healthcare in the world, have the longest longevity in the world, and do that at less cost than everybody else. But why is it we aren't there? It's because of the political impact of the lobbyist and the medical industrial complex that has like 5 lobbyists per member of Congress.
Wow.
That's incredible. Now that takes political will, and that takes public pressure.
Right.
And that's one reason for wanting to do talks like this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Well, any other questions?
I thank you all for the opportunity to speak with you, and I hope it helped.
Yeah. So remember his website. So if you have any other questions, you go to his website. You can find it there, and also you can email him for further discussion. So I hope everybody enjoyed this talk, and let's say give a big hand to Wayne. And have a,
thank you.
Everybody have a nice Thanksgiving and happy holidays. We'll see you next year. We don't
Great talk.
In December.
Great job, guys. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Right. Good night.
Okay.
Everybody.
Thank you, everybody. So I'm going to end the program.